Expanding the scenario means adding detailed storytelling elements and context to each part to deepen the audience's immersion and make the script longer and more engaging. Here's a much more detailed version of the first part of the script, amplifying events, emotions, and environment. This style can be applied throughout the script. The war had ended, but for thousands of men who once wore the German uniform or acted as loyal collaborators, the nightmare had only just begun. The streets of Berlin were silent, shattered by bombings, the proud Nazi banners replaced by Allied flags. Victory for the Allies meant justice would soon come knocking, and for these men, there was only one thought: escape. Escape from the consequences that awaited them.
Imagine a cold spring evening in 1945. Across Europe, cities lay in ruins. Refugees and soldiers moved cautiously through broken streets, unsure of what tomorrow held. In hidden rooms, secret meetings took place. Shadowy figures whispered plans to flee, burned documents, and prayed nobody would discover their past sins. Lives balanced on a knife's edge of hope and fear. The Nuremberg processes had not yet begun, but their threat loomed large, a beacon of justice illuminated by all the horrors the world was beginning to uncover. These men knew what was coming, trials that would expose every secret, sentence many to death or life imprisonment. Their initial movements were frantic and desperate. Roads choked with fleeing soldiers, trains packed with refugees. But not all fled together. High-ranking officers and key collaborators took more secretive paths, guided by loyalists who had prepared networks long before the war's collapse. Europe offered no easy shelter. The Soviet Union tightened its grip on the East. Western allies swept through Germany and France, rounding up those who served the Nazi cause. Neutral countries reluctantly monitored their borders, unwilling to become sanctuaries for war criminals. Yet, a few unexpected places quietly opened their doors. Spain, devastated by its own brutal civil war, was one such country. Under Francisco Franco, Spain remained officially neutral, but politically it leaned toward the Axis. Its stability and geographic position at the continent's edge made it a strategic haven. For those who could reach Spain, it was a temporary shelter that allowed them to plan their next move, farther away, farther south, across the ocean to somewhere new. Think about the logistics. These weren't just ordinary travelers. These were men fleeing armies and governments bent on justice. Paperwork, passports, travel routes, each step required careful planning. Corrupt officials, secret sympathizers, and shadowy smugglers formed a web that stretched from Germany to Spain and beyond.
Even inside neutral Switzerland, a country famed for its discretion, some influential people turned a blind eye or lent a helping hand. Hidden behind the country's famous neutrality were quiet alliances and loyalties helping those desperate to escape. And the Catholic Church? It played a mysterious role. While the church as a whole preached peace and forgiveness, several high-ranking bishops and priests acted quietly behind the scenes. Some issued baptismal certificates and identity papers. Others arranged secret transports to safe locations, believing redemption was possible or sympathizing with anti-communist ideals.
As time ran out, the fugitives moved rapidly. Adopting false names, they boarded ships and planes, crossed borders under the cover of darkness, hoping to disappear forever. Their destination? Argentina. The southernmost country in the Americas was not just chosen by chance. Juan Domingo Perón, Argentina's charismatic and controversial president, was waiting with open arms. He saw in these men potential allies for his vision of a strong, militarized Argentina.
Perón admired the order and discipline of the German military. He admired their technological advances. And more than that, he shared some ideological sympathies that made these men more than just refugees. To Perón, they were future contributors to his nation's greatness. To understand why Argentina was so welcoming, you have to look deeper. Argentina was an ethnic melting pot shaped by centuries of immigration from Europe, especially Spain, Italy, and Germany. These ties were not just cultural, they shaped national identity. Language, traditions, cuisine, and mentality created a sense of familiarity that helped displaced Europeans feel at home.
Imagine arriving in Buenos Aires, a city bustling with European influence, where many Argentines spoke German or Italian at home and celebrated European holidays. For a fugitive, it was like stepping into a place both foreign and familiar, somewhere they could blend in, survive, and even thrive. The German government had long cultivated relationships with Argentina, sending diplomats and intelligence officers to build connections. German spies operated there. Argentine officials with European roots often sympathized with the Axis cause. Perón's aggressive push to militarize his nation reflected these connections. He staged spectacular military parades inspired by Nazi pageantry, hoping to foster national pride and strength. His vision was bold: Argentina as a powerful, independent country that could hold its own against global superpowers.
Many of Argentina's wealthiest citizens and politicians supported this vision. Some saw former Nazis not as criminals, but as experts, offering knowledge in technology, military strategy, and industry. Even Perón's personal history bound him to them. He had served as an officer in the Italian army in the 1930s, giving him first-hand experience with fascist military culture. But Argentina was not completely isolated. The war's end brought pressure. Less than a month before the conflict ceased, Argentina declared war on the Axis, a symbolic gesture aimed at international acceptance.
Yet behind closed doors, help continued flowing. Argentine agents secretly assisted German officers fleeing Europe, ensuring they reached safe passage across the ocean. Money was a big factor. Wealthy Germans in Argentina and sympathetic businessmen financed escape networks, paid for fake documents, and bribed officials. But there was more at stake. A new conflict quietly brewing: the Cold War. Many predicted the next global struggle would be between the capitalist West and communist East. Perón and his advisors saw the approaching tensions clearly. For Argentina, harboring these so-called criminals was a strategic gamble, a way to gain influence, protect anti-communist allies, and position itself as a key player on the world stage.
They recruited refugees with military and technological skills, hoping these men would one day help modernize Argentina's armed forces and industry. This mirrored the American and Soviet projects, which hunted for German scientists to strengthen their own militaries. For the fugitives, Argentina seemed like salvation, a place untouched by Allied justice and away from Europe's scars. But that calm wouldn't last forever. 10 years later, in 1955, Perón was overthrown. The political winds shifted. The government grew wary of maintaining ties with former Nazis. Fear of international backlash and extradition rose. By the 1990s, most of these men lived openly in Argentina, aging, faded from public memory. Some were captured and tried, while many others disappeared into Argentina's large German-descended population.
Their escape was made possible by ratlines, complex networks that helped people flee Europe after the war. These routes usually passed through Spain or Italy before crossing the Atlantic. Looking at the global map in 1945 tells the full story. Every direction was dangerous. The Soviet Union controlled the East, Allied forces the West, colonies dotted Africa, and the US and Canada guarded the Americas. But down south, Latin America beckoned, a vast region with relatively open borders and sympathetic governments. Argentina stood at the heart of this story, a secret refuge for those who fled one of history's darkest chapters.